So how does economics equate to the modern schism of feminism, or men's rights, or man-woman relations? Well, if money makes the world go round, we have to take a close and hard look at the bodies that generate that money in order for it to put a slanted spin on the world so it may rotate. Who is it that mines the ores from the earth in order to produce our modern infrastructure? Who is it that pumps the black gold from the veins of our planet so that laptops, the internet, and cars can exist? Well, the answer is obviously men. And not only do men break their backs to mine such value, but they also create the blueprints to make sure all of these raw resources can easily be converted from their raw materials to real-life designs, so that you may navigate your car with a voice-activated computer that tells you where you need to go, or so that you may cook your food with the flick of a switch instead of flint and steel. But more importantly, how does economics reveal how men are truly the niggers of the world? Not women, but men. Well, first of all, we can understand that men, they create money and capital, and it comes from the ball, sweat, and blood of their lives. But it seems that women have a sort of addiction to belittling men for doing so. And this is evident within the feminist mantra of men earning more money than women. And this ties in beautifully with economics. I mean, in other words, the modern Western concept of a gendered pay gap is basically a loud cry of the Western woman who feel they are so unnecessary that shockingly the world might continue to rotate and spin without them. The reality is that men produce and women do not. But the sad part of this reality is that women love the fact that they don't produce. They love it. Because exactly as woman's nature predicts, what they don't love is the lack of attention they get for not producing anything. And the gendered pay gap myth falls among the same liberal economic concepts of these minimum wage laws. Now you can go and see part 2 of this series and how Walter E. Williams explains all of this very, very beautifully. However, this time, instead of racial minorities being the target, it is now the entire gender of men. And to me, this would be the next logical step if you're engineering this kind of economical bullshit. Exploitation of a race through dirty economics has a very small target group. Now you shift that focus to all men, and you shackle half the population of the world to forced poverty and servitude to the other half, the female half, who just so happen to be supported and protected by the infrastructure that the male slaves have built. Now, let's take a look at these intelligent and reasonable statements from the brilliant economist Thomas Sowell on why this is so. He understands segregation and unfair treatment beyond just race.
I would like to, for a moment, ask you some questions about the economics of job getting in terms of the blacks versus the whites. The statistics I was able to pull together indicate that at the present time, white males make $17,427 on an average basis for the year. Black males make $12,738. White females make $10,244, and black females make $9,476. It is clear from these figures, as indeed I think it's clear to most of us from what we see, that there is a discrimination against blacks and against women in our present system. Since not all blacks will be superior, how would you try to even that out so that there would be some equality of job opportunities?
I'm sorry you missed the earlier part of the program when I pointed out that where you find people not represented evenly, that does not show the institutional effect, because almost nowhere in human affairs do you find people evenly represented.
Well,
if you compare comparable people with respect to age, with respect to education, etc., you get a totally different picture, both with respect to blacks and women. Now, the figures that I saw, for example, show more recently that if you take black families where the husband and wife are both college educated and compare them to a white family where the husband and wife are both college educated, the black family is now earning $2,000 a year more. The problem is that very few blacks fall in that category. that when you compare category for category, then we're talking about getting people a decent education. I'm saying that you cannot say that numbers collected at the employer's place of business reflect simply the employer's policies. Those numbers reflect underlying conditions in the whole society, just as numbers collected at the hospital do not show you that the people are sick because they're in the hospital.
No, I would agree with that, but you would also have to agree that generally speaking, women are paid less, for example, for the same jobs as men.
No, I would not. I would not agree with that. If you're talking about women with the same number of years of experience, with the same continuous service, etc., then when I look at that, I don't find that disparity. I find, for example, in many cases, the women are making more, depending on how you break the data down. The difference with women is between married women and everybody else. That's the real difference.
Well, even as to single women, the Census Bureau statistics, the most recent ones I could find, 1978, say that single men are earning $11,100 and single women are earning $9,300.
Yes, I love the word single that is used. When I did my study, I didn't use single, I used never married. You see, a woman who is single at age 40, having spent 10 or 20 years raising children, is really not quite the same as a man of age 40 who's been working continuously for 20 years.
And the differential she cited is not that great, so it could easily be accounted for by the point
Yes,
you
because when I
raised.
break them down the other way, I did this for the academic world, and there I found the women who are never married, which is the term the way I take it. There they were earning more than the men. And similarly, when the government did data some years ago on women who had been working continuously since high school into their 30s, there you found that they were making slightly more than men of the same description. So the difference is between married women and everybody else. And married men get an extra bonus because their wives take care of many things that enable them to put more time into their careers.
I'm sure you're aware of the fact that there are approximately 15% of all homes in which there is only one wage earner. So that when you talk about women being able to take care of things for their married mate wage earner, the fact is that in the overwhelming majority of American homes, the women also work. And therefore, I don't think your explanation that women have other responsibilities and that that's why they are...
Work can mean part-time work or full-time work. Women do not work full-time to the same extent that men. Part-time workers make less than full-time workers.
Now, as I have mentioned in many of my previous videos, men and women, regardless of how much these social justice fucking warriors want us to believe that we are all the same, in reality, men and women have very different values from one another, especially in regards to how each sex views the other and perceives each other's values. The pay gap myth is nothing more than the next step from racial segregation and exploitation through economics into the class of gender. Again, increasing the volume of the exploited by shifting the focus from race to gender, thus making men the metaphorical nigger of the world. But in my opinion, men have always worn this badge. This sign has always been hung around their necks since the dawn of time. The only difference today is being that now modern liberal economics allow it to become this monetary standard that we all must accept. It's the difference between how much land you own to harvest and basically how thick your wallet appears. Now, to send you off, I want to show you one more piece from that Walter E. Williams interview, where he makes a beautiful analogy between welfare economics and the real relationships between men and women. And this definitely clarifies the point that I'm trying to make about how men truly are, and always have been, the niggers of the world. Enjoy.
But the minimum wage law, any kind of minimum or any kind of regulation on prices, it discriminates against less preferred people. I mean, if you ask the question, and one example I frequently give talking about setting prices, any kind of price control, it discriminates against less preferred people. I often ask people, suppose you saw a fat, old, ugly, cigar-smoking man, and he's married to a beautiful young lady. What kind of prediction would you make about that man's income? You would guess that it's pretty high. And what is he doing? He's telling the beautiful young lady, look, I can't compete for your hand on the basis of a guy like Williams. So I'm going to offset my handicap by offering you a higher price. And so decent people might say, Well, gee, is it fair for beautiful young ladies to treat fat, old, ugly, cigar-smoking men any differently than they treat handsome men? And they'll say no. And then you make a law saying that that beautiful young ladies can't charge fat, old, ugly, cigar-smoking men higher prices than they charge handsome men. Then you say, well, then what happens to the probability of a fat, old, ugly, cigar-smoking man marrying a beautiful young lady? What you've done by regulating prices, you've taken away his most effective means of competing with the more preferred man by offering higher prices. And so that's the same thing when you regulate any price. You handicap less preferred people.
Well, my fellow niggers of the world, I hope you take away from this series of videos at least a small taste of the red pill. Modern socialist economics force you as a man into the cotton fields, and though it may, on the outside, appear as some kind of conspiracy, try to put yourself in the position of a black American in the early 20th century, which was not all that long ago, I might add. The slave often dreams of conspiracy to help him cope with his forced condition. But in reality, it is not so much a conspiracy, but a well-oiled machine that allows for the exploitation that we currently experience today. Much like the goodwill of men and the technological advances afforded by their sweat and blood and tears allowed for Western women to have way too much time on their hands. Men devised the formula of technology and economy, and those two solutions, when agitated together in the petri dish of life, they created the perfect environment for the mold of gynocentrism to propagate. And when we men turned our backs, a new fungus was born, the fungus of feminism. Technology plus socialist economy equals a solution which, when introduced to the rabid culture of gynocentrism, gave rise to the mold of feminism. It's time that we men put that silly experiment to rest and pour bleach on this infection. It's time we tossed out this moldy wheat and started a new crop. It's time we go our own way. Be MGTOW, be wise, be free. And I will see you again next time, brothers. Take care and be safe.